Allahu Allahu Allah Allahu 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 Allah.
من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا سيدنا محمد عبده ورسوله خير النبي اجتباه وهدى للعالمين أرسله الله بدين الحق ليظهر على دين كل ولو كره الكافرون. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأزواجه وذريته وأصحابه والتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد عباد الله، أذكركم إياي بتقوى الله سبحانه وتعالى، أذكركم بقوله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الكريم حيث يقول: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. أذكركم إياي بالحفظ القرآن الكريم وسنة سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mighty and exalted is He, for the blessings that He has bestowed upon us. And I remind you and I remind myself of the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. Were you to enumerate the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we would never be able to enumerate them. If we were to count the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we would never be able to begin to count them. Imagine just for a moment the blessing of the moisture that happens when your eye blinks. Just think about that for a moment. The blessing of the moisture of the secretion of your eyelid when it blinks. You don't know the blessing of it. We don't know the blessing of it until it's taken from us. My friend's mother, every 15 seconds of her life, she has to put drops in her eyes because her eye does not secrete the moisture that allows her eyes to blink. How about all of the other blessings, all the faculties that we are given of our intellect, of our strength, of our families, of our wealth, of our communities, of the love that we feel, of the safety and the security that we experience in this country right now as being Muslims. But if you want to look at the blessing, then let's look at the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bringing us from a state of non-existence into a state of existence. That He subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His infinite wisdom, through His infinite mercy, through His infinite knowledge, chose to bring us into creation. Taking us from a state of non-existence into a state of existence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Insan, هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ حِينٌ مِّنَ الظَّهْرِ لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا. Has there not been a time when the human being was not even anything mentioned? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to create with kun, fayakun, and then brings you and me, our children, our spouse, and all of us into existence. That in and of itself, alhamdulillah, is a blessing that we could never come up from sajda if we were to prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the type of gratitude that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has first created us and then given us what? The miftah. And given us the key of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Because what does the Prophet ﷺ say in the hadith? He says that Inna Allah yu'ti dunya liman yuhib wa liman la yuhib walakin la yu'ti al-akhirah illa man yuhib. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives His dunya to those that He loves and those that He doesn't love. But He doesn't give the akhirah except for those that He loves. May Allah make us of those people. Ameen.
Ameen.
May Allah make us of those people that He loves. Ameen. But He has allowed us, alhamdulillah, not to be running through the streets trying to figure out, why am I here? What's my purpose in life? What should I be doing? What happens after I die? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved us from all of that confusion. Saved us from that confusion. Alhamdulillah, and put us on the path to travel back home to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, back home to the garden. Alhamdulillah, may Allah make our passage from this world one of ease and facilitation. Ameen. What I'd like to talk about today in the short time that we have is this concept of hardship as through a historical look of the first years in Mecca of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. We're constantly hearing this idea of hardships and struggles. And at times, perhaps it's easier just to walk away from those challenges or to blame those around us. But is that the way of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? We have to ask ourselves that question. If we claim ittiba' Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if we claim that we are following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is this the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that in the face of challenges that we walk away from the challenge, or that we put the blame on others? So the question we have to ask ourselves. So when we ask ourselves that question, or if we don't ask ourselves that question, then maybe it causes us to fall into depression, to feel sad about the situation, or to feel powerless about the situation. We may even ask ourselves, why is this happening to us? What did we do to deserve this? But again, ask yourself the question, is this the way of the Prophet? And then how can we be people who will claim, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-'aliyyil 'azim? How can we claim that there is no might and no power except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then feel powerless? How does that work? Either our claim is not true, or we don't understand the Kudba, the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the question that we have to ask ourselves over and over and over again. Now let's look at some of the hardships of the Prophet ﷺ. And let's start at the first hardship that he endures for this ummah, which is what? The revelation itself. Alhamdulillah, just 2 weeks ago I stood with a group. We took a group from our college, led a group to Umrah, and we stood at the cave Ghar Hira where the revelation came down. Walillah alhamd. But what is transpiring there? What transpires there is that the Prophet ﷺ is in a state which is called tahannuth, that he has taken himself out of the hustle and bustle, if you will, retreated to the cave sallallahu alaihi wasallam to meditate, if you will, prior to revelation. And then what happens, this being fills up the sky. He says, when I looked to the east, I saw Jibreel. When I looked to the west, I saw Jibreel alayhi salam. And what happens? Jibreel comes in the form that he comes in, and he squeezes the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Iqra ma ana biqari. Iqra ma ana biqari. Iqra ma ana biqari. Jibreel alayhi salam squeezing the Prophet ﷺ with the command, read or recite, I cannot read. Read, I cannot read. The Prophet ﷺ says, read, I cannot read, 3 times. And the Prophet ﷺ says that Jibreel squeezes him until he feels that his sides will burst. The Prophet ﷺ in this state runs down to his home confused, not knowing what happens to him, asking his wife, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, cover me, cover me. Now, those of you who may understand a state of shock, some have looked at this situation and said the Prophet ﷺ was in a state of shock. And one of the things that happens in a state of shock is that one feels internally cold. Body temperature feels as if it is dropping. So he's in a catatonic state of shock. Coming down from the mountain, asking his wife to comfort me and cover me. So this revelation is a test for the Prophet ﷺ, is a hardship for the Prophet ﷺ. The scholars mention that they acknowledge the difficulty of this taking of the Quran, and it's not easy. It was not easy for the Prophet ﷺ, nor is it easy for us right now. Why? Because the revelation not being easy is that it will literally squeeze the blameworthy traits out of your life if we allow it to. The Quran will squeeze the blameworthy traits out of your life if we allow it to. And it will make us the best person that we can be if we will allow it to. That's the hardship that he ﷺ endures at that first stage. But then Khadija radiallahu anha, in her wisdom, in her motherly state, because she had children before the Prophet ﷺ married her, she consoles him. And this consoling represents after hardship is ease. After hardship is ease. He comes to his wife. And what does she remind him? She reminds him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah would not afflict you with something. Would not afflict you with something bad when all that you do is good. Allah will not afflict you with something bad when all that you do is good. And then she reminds him of his virtues. You take care of the orphans. You look after the widow. You give charity to people in need. You help the oppressed. So how can your Lord abandon you? This is what we have to think about in our time right now. This is what we have to think about in our time right now. We have to think about it in the same way. If we are people committed to do that which is good, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never abandon us. By His promise. Not by me telling you this right now on this minbar, but by His promise subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has promised us this. We have to believe in that promise. Regardless of what people want to think. So how can your Lord abandon you? This is what we have to think about in our time right now. This is what we have to think about in our time right now. We have to think about it in the same way. If we are people committed to do that which is good, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never abandon us. By His promise. Not by me telling you this right now on this minbar, but by His promise subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has promised us this. We have to believe in that promise. Regardless of what people want to think about us, regardless of what people want to label us, we have to believe in the promise of the Creator of the heavens and the earth. And we commit to this good, alhamdulillah, then we will come to understand the reality of the verse of Quran, هَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانُ. Is there any reward of good except for that which is good? Is there any reward? It's a rhetorical question Allah is asking. Is there any reward? Shall I give you anything other than good when you do good? And that's the reality that we have to constantly be reminding ourselves as we are here. If we are a community that's committed to feeding the poor and to helping the needy and to helping those when they need assistance, then how can we expect anything except for good from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, irrespective of what the outward realities look like? That's the challenge. Irrespective of what the external realities look like. Because why? As Muslims, we're not concerned with the external realities. Because if we were concerned with the external realities, then if Badr would have been a failure, and Uhud would have been a failure, and Tabuk would have been a failure, if we were concerned with externalities. But we're not concerned with that. We're concerned with the relationship between our heart and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is that first hardship that the Prophet endures. If we look at these first years of Islam in Mecca, if we look at these first years, just taking us quickly through, these first years were years of difficulty. Year 1, 2, and 3 of the Hijrah of the revelation, post-revelation, are known as the private years. These are the years when Islam existed in private in the house of Arqam ibn Arqam, one of the Sahaba, that the Prophet ﷺ would come to his house and teach the Sahaba, teach his companions in the cover of darkness. Why? Out of fear of retribution from the Meccans. The reality of this for us and thinking about it is that, as Imam Zayd Shakir, who was here this weekend with us, he has said, there ain't nothing new under the sun. Ain't nothing new under the sun. Just like the Meccans stood at the gates of Mecca, saying that one of their youth from their tribe, from Bani Hashim, had been afflicted by magic and have been afflicted by jinn, so take this cotton and put it in your ears so you won't hear his message. It's the same thing that Fox News and all the others are doing. They're putting a different type of cotton in the people's ears right now. You hear me on that? They're putting a different type of cotton in the ears of the people right now. But what happened? That when they saw the face of the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was their response? This is not the face of a liar. This is not the face of a liar. So let the people see that nur on your face and understand that what you are committed to is a deen and a way of life of beauty. When our actions match what we say, we will see the people coming to this reality. We will see the people coming to this reality. Again, a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So those are years 1 through 3. What happens in year 4? The public invitation now. Abu Bakr, the first one to go where? To the Kaaba. And he professes his Islam and begins to pray. But what happens to him? He's assaulted by his own family, by his own tribe. Beaten to a state of unconsciousness. Waking up, asking, I don't care about anything else. How is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That is my concern. How is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So we know these stories, but we have to understand them in the context that we are in right now. That's not our reality as Muslims in America right now. We are not being beaten for praying right now. We're not being beaten for even professing Islam out in the streets right now. So when we talk about hardships, we should be careful and think about the context in which we are in, and the context in which Islam has thrived in situations much more harsh and much more difficult. And I say that as well too to our African American brothers in the community. The community has been through much more difficult times than this before as African Americans. The state that Muslims are in right now is not even close to the state that happened during the realities of the civil rights movements in this country. We should wake up to that as Muslims. We should wake up to that as Muslims. And understand and read our history of this country. If we want to begin to make claims about hardship, we should be careful about that. And come speak to the elders of this community. Come speak to the elders of this country to understand the realities of what that hardship was like. So that takes us through years 1 through 4. And then as we say, the reality of this whole thing after hardship is what? Ease. So what happens? 1, 2, 3, 4 is difficulty. What happens in year 5? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up what? The Hijrah to Abyssinia. Here comes your ease. Here comes your ease promised by your Lord. We're going to have to endure. We're going to have to endure as a community, as individuals. We're going to have to endure hardships. It's the reality of the world in which we live in. It's the reality of the sunnah of your Lord. There is no way that we're going to escape it. This is not a place of rose petals and unicorns and rainbows and butterflies. This ain't the world, bruh. It's a whole different reality down here. It's a world of test. Why? And that's what the Prophet sometimes, Allahumma la isha illa al-isha al-akhirah. Oh Allah, there is no life, there is no reality except for the reality of the next world. But alhamdulillah, when we have that heart connected to the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a beautiful existence. And this is a beautiful existence. Regardless of what state we find it in externally, as I said before, if the internal is connected to al-haq, the reality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then all of this is just time passing by. And we understand it through the lens of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being in control of every single animate and inanimate object from the time that He said kun until the time that all of this returns back to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the reality that we connect ourselves with. So that takes us to that. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives another blessing. So that's year 5. The Hijr happens. What happens in year 6? Year 6 is another power boost, if you will, for Islam. Year 6 is the year that Hamza and Umar radiallahu anhuma, the Prophet's uncle, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Umar ibn al-Khattab embraced Islam. After that hardship is ease. And just as the Meccans said, Umar radiallahu anhu, he was an enemy of Islam. He was an enemy of Islam. And actually, now that I say that, someone just showed me yesterday the far right wing Islamophobe head of the state, I believe it was in Germany, who had been on a campaign against Muslims for years, took his shahada 2 days ago. The head of the white supremacist Islamophobic movement in Germany, did you hear me? Took his shahada 2 days ago. And they said that Omar's donkey will become Muslim before Omar. Why? Why is this not a surprise to me that the head of this movement became Muslim? Because the affair is not in any of our hands. Everyone's heart is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He will take who He wants for His deen. And He will use them in a manner that He sees fit, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just as He took Umar radiallahu anhu, who left his house with the most vile of intentions. What did he leave his house with? He left his house with the intention of what? Of killing the Prophet. Could you leave with a more vile intention from your house? But guess what happens in the pathway? Leaves with the most wicked of intentions and comes back what? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. And we know that story. Hamza radiallahu anhu, the uncle of the Prophet, he's not even Muslim. And when he hears that Abu Jahl, his brother, is attacking the Prophet verbally, he comes back from a campaign and says, comes up to Abu Jahl, strikes him with his bow and says, do you insult him and curse him? And I am on his deen. And he's not even Muslim yet. When we live this life in a way, Allah will bring allyships in places we can't even think about. And you saw it during the Muslim ban. 10,000 people coming to an airport to support Muslims. 10,000 people bringing food for Muslims when they were sitting in the airports during this travel ban. 10,000 people, not Muslims, circling around the Muslims so they could pray their Dhuhr, Asr, and their Maghrib. Allah will bring the help from this deen when we stand up for this deen. Allahumma ameen. May Allah make us of those people.
Amen.
Point I want to make before we end to the other khutbah is that now we have to look at years 7, 8, and 9. So again, if you're going to experience hardship, you're going to experience ease. And if you're going to experience ease, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to experience hardship. Because like I said, it ain't about rose petals, butterflies, unicorns, and rainbows. We can want that as much as we want, but that's not the reality of this world. That's the reality of this world. So then after that, they experience that. And Omar says, anyone who wants their wife widowed,